At the time of making this video, Germany's GDP is estimated to be around 4.2 trillion US dollars. This amount of money is hard to comprehend. However, it is still less than the combined market cap of the two most valuable brands on the planet, Apple and Saudi Aramco, whose total market cap is valued at 5 trillion US dollars. An economy size of 4.2 trillion makes Germany the fourth richest country in the world when looking at this metric. Of course, this does not reflect individual wealth, but the wealth of the value of all finished goods and services made within Germany during a specific period. Only Japan, China, and the USA have a larger economy. Each have a population 1.5, 16.6, and 4 times larger respectively. So just how is Germany the richest country in Europe? Well, Germany is an economic powerhouse. It sits in the middle of Europe, is a founding member of the EU, and is the second most populated country on the continent, only behind Russia, which kind of cheats by sitting in 2 continents. Only the Dutch work fewer hours among the 34 members of the OECD, which contains 38 countries from around the world. That German children spend 25% less time in the classroom than their Italian counterparts, and that there are 6 more productive economies in Europe alone, and yet Germany still has the strongest economy in Europe. So first things first, let's take a look at how Germany compares to other European countries in terms of GDP. So the UK sits just below them with 3.1 trillion, next is France at 2.9 trillion, Italy at 2.1 trillion, and then Russia at 1.6 trillion US dollars. However, it must be noted that due to the sanctions from Russia's invasion of Ukraine, it is likely that Russia's economy size is actually much lower than this figure. So Germany comfortably takes the crown as the richest country by GDP on the continent. In 2016, Germany recorded the highest trade surplus in the world, worth over $300 billion. This economic result made it the biggest capital exporter globally. Germany is one of the largest exporters in the world, with around $2 trillion worth of goods and services exported in 2019. The automotive industry gross production value in Germany accounts for roughly 500 billion euros in total sales. In 2019, around 3.5 million vehicles were exported, which was around 20% of all exported cars in the world. The industry employs around 800,000 people within Germany and accounts for around 10% of the total national GDP. German cars are known around the world for their quality and value. Brands such as BMW, Mercedes, Audi, and Porsche are some of the most prestigious brands in the world. With a revenue of 278 billion US dollars in 2019, Volkswagen is Germany's biggest company. It is the 133rd most valuable brand at a market cap of around 105 billion US dollars. However, what blows my mind is that a company of this caliber is still 27 times smaller in terms of market cap than the most valuable company, Apple, at around $2.7 trillion at the time of making this video. So Germany's GDP makes them the richest country in Europe, but as mentioned earlier, this does not reflect the wealth of its citizens. Let's look at the USSR as an example. It was an extremely wealthy empire, but the everyday citizens who lived in it were very poor. So instead, let's take a look at GDP per capita, which is a more accurate way of seeing the true wealth of citizens. For this, Germany ranks 17th in the world and actually 12th in Europe. So not bad, but certainly not as good as where their total GDP ranks them. It must be noted, however, that some of the nations that rank above Germany are incredibly small, such as San Marino and Luxembourg, whose populations are 34,000 and 642,000 respectively. So it's not a fair comparison for a country who has 84 million. However, these stats do not lie, and although Germany is a financial powerhouse, its citizens on average aren't so much compared to other countries around them. When it comes to average salaries, Germany ranks 11th in the world and 8th in Europe at just under 54,000 US dollars or 50,000 euros. So again, not bad, but not the best. When it comes to enormous wealth, Germany has the 4th highest amount of billionaires in the world at around 134. Only India, China and the US have more. This means that there are around 3 billionaires per 2 million people in Germany. At around 3 million, Germany has the fourth most billionaires in the world, only behind Japan, China and the USA. This means Germany is responsible for over 5% of all millionaires in the world. There is absolutely no doubt that Germany has benefited greatly from the euro. By getting into bed with more sluggish economies in southern Europe, Germany adopted a much weaker currency than would otherwise have been the case. As one of the very few countries in the world running a balance of payments surplus, the Deutschmark would have been a great deal stronger than the euro. However, this has provided a terrific boost to German exports, which are cheaper to overseas consumers as a result. But this goes only some way to explaining Germany's current economic might. Just as important are the relative low levels of private debt. While the rest of Europe gorged on cheap credit throughout the 1990s and noughties, German companies and individuals refused to spend beyond their means. In German, borrowing is Schulden, which is the same word for guilt. There is an attitude that if you have to borrow, there is something wrong with you. This has been particularly beneficial to Germany in recent years. Unlike its European counterparts, consumers and businesses did not need to slash spending to cut their debt levels when banks stopped lending during the 2008 crash and recession. Germany is pretty much positioned to become astronomically wealthy. Germany is centrally situated in Europe, has access to the sea, and has great river connections. Germany can service markets across Europe from its central location. Germany also has access to both iron and coal, which means it can make steel and generate power without having to import anything. The Germans have a fairly homogeneous culture, barring a lot of immigrants from Turkey in the post-war era. That culture stresses value of hard work, thrift, education, and collective action, a perfect combination for creating successful companies and industries. The Germans came out of World War II with a destroyed infrastructure, but a lot of smart people. With the help of the Marshall Plan, they were able to rebuild the infrastructure, and the smart people worked with great diligence to restore their material wealth. Germany had a pre-war reputation for making high-quality goods, and German companies traded on that reputation in the post-war era, making things like cars, industrial equipment, chemicals, and electronical goods. The German people have had a very stable political system since the war too. When reunification became possible, the West Germans mobilized quickly to make it happen and deployed a lot of money to smooth the transition. There was relatively little objection in German society to the reunification, even though it was quite expensive. So to summarize, Germany is a resource-rich, geographically central country with a large population who have the right values to be successful and with a political system that is very stable. Thank you for watching, and we will see you very soon in the next video.